Hi, my name is Bill Mack, and I'm located in St. Paul, Minnesota. The place that I remember fondly is Zion School in Granton, Wisconsin. That's Granton, Wisconsin. It was a little one-room schoolhouse that I went to in the early 60s for only 2 years in the second and third grade. Later, it had been torn down because they widened the road, and I think it must have been originally the actual church building that the sponsoring church began in. And once they built a larger facility, they retained the original church and used it as a one-room schoolhouse. There were some 20 or 30 students of varying ages when I went there. It was K through 8, and one teacher handled a whole bunch of us, and the older kids would typically help the littler ones like me with math and reading and so forth. So it was a way to keep the older students engaged and help the teacher out in dealing with some rambunctious little kids like myself. The recess time was also separated by ages so that the bigger kids didn't pick on the little ones. And the teacher would ring the bell that was in the school's bell tower when it was time to come in. One of my favorite things to do was there was a climbing tree, a really good one, in the area outside the school. And when I was little, the branches were too high for me to get started, so there was kind of a rickety old ladder that was typically leaned up against the tree. And some of us would, when it was time for our recess, we would climb up and get on the limbs and then use the ladder to come down. And one day I was kind of adventurous, and I went up a couple of extra limbs. And when the bell rang for recess, I had trouble getting down to where the ladder was, and I took too long. The older kids came out and took the ladder away from the tree, and I had no way down because I was too little to just jump. And I knew that the teacher was going to assign me late penalties and demerit points or whatever it was that she was doing in those days. And so I panicked. I didn't know what to do, and the older kids were, kind of laughing, and they went away so that I wouldn't yell to them and call them. So I was just there by myself. So I wound up mustering all my courage and jumping down from the lowest limb, which probably was, 3 or 4 feet off the ground, but it seemed like 20 feet to me. And I landed on my stomach, knocked the wind out of myself for the first time in my life. I never had experienced that before, and I thought I was going to die. And eventually I recovered my wind and ran into the school, and it was late, and the teacher also was, in effect, a school bus driver. She hauled a few of us kids back to our homes within 3 or 4 miles of where the school was. And I was the last kid dropped off that night, and she and I had a long discussion, and that was probably worse than the fall and having the wind knocked out of me. But generally, it was just a great experience, and something that I don't think very many people have anymore. One-room schools are a thing of the past, but this place was pretty special to me, and I remember it just like it was yesterday.